right, fellas. Hey, a little 5-0 action. A little 5-0 action here. I'm sweating bullets, man. Trying to will the Royals to a win over the Yankees, but a little 5-0 action. Listen, the Chiefs, while being frustrating, looked arguably their best game of the year against the Saints. Maybe the Ravens game, but I mean, when you look at this cast, this looked like it was the best that we've seen. And I mean, the return of Juju, 7 for 130. Rasheed never did that, BK. Rasheed never did that. 7 for 130. So, hey, looking good. Hey, Worthy added some plays and caused some penalties. One called, one not. Big plays there. Receivers looked all right.
The Chiefs.
I just want to say though, BK, let's not get carried away and think, hey, they can roll with this receiving core. Let's calm down. All right. Like Rashee Rice, we found out when he ain't coming back for 4 months. Let's not think that Juju's gonna be able to bring this to the table that often.
The Chiefs had a 300-yard passer, a 100-yard rusher, and a 100-yard receiver in this game. And it was the first time that they had done that since November 20th of 2022. That took place against the Chargers when it was Mahomes, Kelsey, and Pacheco. Before that, Ron, this is unbelievable. You have to go back to the season opening win against the Patriots in 2017, the first game of Kareem Hunt's career, for the last time that they had a 300-yard passer, a 100-yard rusher, and a 100-yard receiver. In other words, this has only happened twice in Patrick Mahomes' career. Two times in his entire career. One was in 2022, and the other was on Monday Night Football against the New Orleans Saints.
And with Kareem Hunt and Juju Smith-Schuster and the corpse that many people thought of Kareem and Juju is who he did it with.
Anybody in the NFL could have signed them, and they were sitting on their couch. They were basically free. The Patriots said Juju Smith-Schuster's knee is about to explode. Nobody wanted Kareem Hunt because of how slow and washed up he looked for the Browns last time that we saw him. And then he goes in there and has 27 carries for 100 yards, and Juju has 7 for $130 and looked spry. Like, not only did he have 7 for 130, Ron, it was the way that it happened that was maybe most impressive. He just looked really good. He looked like Rashee Rice out there at times. It was baffling, but I'm totally with you.
Hold on. I'm not going to let you get away with that. Let's not get carried away.
He's just a little stiffer version of Rashee Rice.
He looks like the Rashee, a
little stiffer, a little thicker, a little slower. Like, hey, he did the job.
Better blocker. He's got that going for him. But I'm totally with you, Ron. I said the same thing last week when you were out. It was me and Serda on here. You can't do what you did last year, where you just kind of wait, and then you bring in McCole and you say, we'll be fine. We'll figure it out. We'll kind of make this thing work as we go. You don't have a Rashee Rice on this team. I like Xavier Worthy, but he's never going to be the target monster that Rashee ended up being last year. That's just not going to be the role for Worthy. Really, not this year, probably at any point in his career. He's more of a big play threat. They need to go get somebody that can get 7 targets a game, and you feel good about it when he gets those 7 targets. And right now, I just don't, outside of Kelsey, I don't think you have that guy on your roster currently.
Yeah, you can't. And I think there is a way that Worthy can develop and develop in his way, right? Like, he's not going to be the same Rashee Rice. I think I said it earlier this week on Daily Fix. Can he develop into some kind of version of maybe whatever Mike Wallace was? Like like that big play type of a player where he has a huge impact, and it could be penalties or whatever. But yes, he's not going to be crossers and getting the ball in the same way that Rashee Rice did. With that being said, although I think he can develop in his own way, they just for them to get where they need to get to, they just need a different type of person, because I think Juju can be cool, but they've got to add like Amari Cooper, something like that. They have to add somebody else that's a threat and not just look at this and say, oh, we can live like this, because I just don't think they can.
I said last week, like, Amari Cooper feels like the best option just because of the contract, because of the style of player that he is, how he wins, a veteran that can come in and you would imagine pick up the playbook relatively quickly. I he makes the most sense to me. Another guy that I really like, Ron, and this would have to be a money situation where they'd have to make it work, and I don't know where the Jaguars are at, but I think Christian Kirk makes a lot of sense stylistically for what this offense needs. The contract is much more difficult to fit in, and that's where things get a little dicey there, but there's options out there. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins, we'll see what happens with him. Another guy that I don't know stylistically if he fits perfectly, but he's a hell of a lot better than what you have currently on the roster, and he upgrades what you have at the position. So there's gonna be players out there that get moved at the deadline or that are at a minimum available at the deadline that can help the Kansas City Chiefs. Those players are not named Devontae Adams. They're not going to be involved in that kind of a sweepstakes, but they can upgrade from where they're at with a mid-tier wide receiver. That's where they need to be shopping right now. And I think this is the week to do it, Ron. I know that sounds crazy, and I'm not like banging the door where they're failures if they don't get it done during their bye, but given how difficult it's been in the past for guys to pick up this offense mid-season, I do think the sooner that you get this done, the better, given what the runway is here, where we now know Rashee Rice is not going to be back at any point this season.
Yeah, if there's a move on the table, like you should absolutely capitalize on the early season bye and get this thing done before you come back for the following week. Like, it makes all the sense in the world. Get somebody in the building this week, get them ready and rolling on the playbook, and try to find ways that you can install that guy into the offense right away, even if it's only going to be for, 30-40% of the snaps in their first game as a Chief or something like that. I do think that there's still another level of this thing to Worthy. And I was excited about the fact that, like, while he's not going to be Rashee Rice, it's his ability to stretch the field and draw pass interference penalties is something that could be a legitimate weapon for the offense. And, like, that's where we're at with the Chiefs offense now. It's like, yeah, it'd be sick if he connects on these 50-yard deep balls, but also I will take that pass interference penalty because he's faster than everybody else. And we're seeing that he can do those because he just blows by people. But they need a guy who's like an innings eater, like Juju can be, though I don't know Juju can absolutely hold up for an entire regular season. They just need somebody who can do the dirty work over the middle of the field and get them easy first downs. And then hopefully Worthy continues to progress as the season goes on and will expand to be an even bigger factor in the offense downfield as we move forward.
Yeah, but the penalty stuff is a real thing. I mean, that's an added huge, like, that picked up huge yards. That's not put into his yardage. I think he only had like 30-something, maybe 20-something yards, but that's a big deal. He almost drew another one as well that would have set him up big. But, like, you just look at the body type of Amari Cooper, you look at if you just insert him and say you're going to do and be the similar player that Rashee Rice is, like that role. And like you said, BK, it's a 1-year thing. That makes a lot of sense. I've continued to hope that Cleveland keeps losing. I've continued to hope that train keeps rolling like they did last week, that they keep losing. And because that is
the worst starting quarterback in football right now.
That him and that whole outfit, they just seem like they've just thrown it in, and I don't blame them. So I just that's the overall thing. Yes, Juju, that was a hell of a performance. It was beautiful. It was great. Like, again, though, like, there was no Justin Watson, there was no other receivers really involved at all, but him and Worthy. And they just, like, to me, it's hard, and I think we can get into this. Can they just go tight end and be like this, tight end and Juju, because Juju's like another tight end, to be honest, and be able to live that way. Like, that's the part to me, BK, is, all right, if you're going to just try to run this and roll with this, it's hard for me to just think in today's day and age, and I understand their defense, but it's hard for me to think that this offense, like, can continue to roll tight end, Juju, who's another tight end, and play that way and be sustainable doing that.
I don't think they can play that way, and I don't think they should play that way long term. They've got to have. I know you said, like, you want to replace the Rashee Rice role. I actually don't mind. I know this is going to sound crazy given where we're at, but I don't mind Juju in that role. And I don't mind Xavier Worthy in the role of like the deep field stretcher, right? The role that I would like to see them replace is like Justin Watson being out there for 40 snaps a game. He gives you nothing. And Justin Watson is fine for what he is, which is a 4th or 5th wide receiver. But when he's in your top 3, you always leave that wanting a little bit more. And that's where he's at for this team right now in terms of their snap count. Is he has to be on the field a ton because they don't have any other outside wide receiver. And that's where Amari Cooper can fit in. I think there's other, like DeAndre Hopkins is a name that you're going to hear a ton between now and the trade deadline as well. That's where I think those guys really come into play. They need somebody that can just run those like, hey, it's 3rd and 7, run a real NFL wide receiver route, not a crosser across the middle, not something where you're trying to get deep or anything like that vertically, just a real let's move the chains right here kind of a route, just stop route, something like that. That's the kind of thing that they're missing right now within this offense. The crazy thing, Ron, you look at some of the statistics that this offense is putting up this year in terms of just like successful plays, like success rate for them, which is gaining 50% of your yards on first down, 70% of your yards on second down, or converting on third. They're one of the most efficient offenses in the NFL again this season, the Chiefs are. They just have no ability to get explosive plays. It's nuts. I don't understand how they're doing it, but they need another guy that can contribute towards that efficiency. And if they can get that, I think they're in a really good spot.
I think the other thing too, and even the turnovers and the silly mistakes and the penalties and all of that, the most frustrating thing about this offense over the last couple of years is the red zone problems. Like it's just like it's sooner or later, because like touchdowns are kind of a fickle thing. So you think like eventually like they're going to progress back to the mean and get a little bit more average there. I don't know why they can't just put it in the end zone. Like, it's so frustrating, and it's not like they don't have the personnel to do it. Sometimes I think it's Andy overcomplicating things. Sometimes it's Mahomes overthinking things. Like it's just it's a legitimate problem that I don't think they have answers to at all. And it's like, if they could just get 2 of those drives that become field goals or a turnover or whatever, just turn those into touchdowns, and we're having a totally different conversation about the offense.
The explosive plays is one thing, right? Like it's really dependent on Worthy. And for some reason, it's not like the explosive plays aren't there. That's why when you say, is this sustainable? Like I wouldn't have believed last year's offensive attack was going to be sustainable once they finally got to it, but clearly it was, or the year before. But like when you watch it, you could see like I saw Worthy have at least opportunities for 2 or 3 explosive plays. The crosser where Mahomes just fired it behind him, there was a chance and an opportunity there for an explosive play. That was going to be a chunk 15 to 20 plus yard play. And then there was a crosser, and I think some of that was pressure, but there was a crosser, and Xavier Worthy was just on the other side, 20 yards down the field by himself for a big play. So the big plays, there are opportunities there. I think half of the red zone stuff is just doing too much. Like even on the red zone touchdown that they got with Worthy, that was just too cute. Like for me, not like, and then obviously we're going to get Pat a touchdown, but yes, Juju should have caught it, but you're at the 2-yard line and Kareem's falling forward for 2 yards all night long. And you can just hand it to him to get into the end zones. The red zone thing is ridiculous to me. All right, they've got powerful running backs over the last 2 years, whether it's Pacheco or Kareem. They've got a magnet in Kelsey who attracts a ton of attention and is a guy that makes plays and has a connection with Mahomes, right? Andy out there. They've had Rasheed has been a big body receiver they've had, and they just can't get it done. So, excuse me, that has to pick up. But I do think they're showing some signs of improvement, this offense. So I don't know that they are still what we've been watching when you say it's sustainable, what we've been watching the first couple of weeks. That felt like a turn last night against the Saints, or Monday. Excuse me.
So there's some truth to that, but it goes beyond just the offense, right? Like this is a full team thing. The Chiefs have now won 11 consecutive regular season games without scoring more than 27 points. That is an NFL record. The Chiefs have gone 16 consecutive regular season games without winning the turnover margin, Ron. 16 straight regular season games without winning the turnover margin. That is the third longest streak in the last 60 years. And the other teams that do this are horrible. You don't typically win games where you're not hitting on explosive plays, you're not winning the turnover margin, and your offense is not finding a way to score more than 27 points. That's not a winning formula. And yet, the Chiefs are finding ways. They're 5-0 this year to start out the season. They finished the season strong last year, winning 3 of their last 4 games of the regular season. So it's not coming back to haunt them yet. And that is what I wonder, like, is that part of what they're doing sustainable? They're winning because their offense is highly efficient on the ground. They have the best success rate on the ground so far this year. If you just look at their rushing offense, they have been stuffed at the line of scrimmage at the lowest rate of any team in the league. You said just a second ago, Ron, you see Kareem out there and he's just getting you 2, 3, 4 yards on every play. That's what he's out there to do, man. He's leaning forward and he's getting you a few yards every time he touches the ball. The same thing was true for Carson Steele when he was in there. He just unfortunately drops the ball and fumbles too often. But this is the way that they're trying to win games, with an efficient offense and a defense that makes enough stops to get you to the end and buys you time offensively. Is that sustainable? Because I think that the offense, like, it's going to fluctuate a lot this year. Can they keep winning this way, Ron, over time? Can they keep getting away with this? Because they have so far.
Yeah, some of it is odd. Like, no, I don't think they can keep getting away with it. But we just saw when it mattered, they'd stop losing the turnover battle. Like we watched, like those games don't really include like the postseason when they had to make stuff work. They didn't keep losing the turnover battle. So no, that's not sustainable. But the reason is, like, for me, the last couple of years, because the last 2 years, this year and last year, and that's where that stuff is coming from, offensive football is down, right? Across the way. It's not like this Chiefs offense that you're talking about is being placed in a league
True.
where offense is just like the 2018 Chiefs. Like, and then when you combine offense being down with the Chiefs defense, it helps counter this offense not being to that space, right? Like, yeah, they may lose the turnover battle, but they're not facing the 18 Chiefs, right? Like they may lose and they may not get into the end zone enough. But if you look at offense and scores around the league, like, however they find themselves to 24 to 27 points with Butker field goals and whatever, with this defense and other teams' offenses, it has been sustainable. So I don't think, like, yes, we would have said that you can't keep turning the ball over and losing the turnover battle. But when it mattered, they didn't do that against Miami, Buffalo, Baltimore, and the Niners.
They kind of did, though, man. Like, they only won the turnover margin once last year in the postseason, and it was the game where it mattered the most, and that was against the Ravens. But that was the only game last year during the postseason where they won the turnover margin. So, like, they got better. They only turned it over once against Miami and once against Buffalo, but they were still turning it over nonetheless, and twice in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, but they didn't lose them. It was even. They were even.
Correct.
I know at least Miami they were.
Yeah. They were even in 2 of those games, and then they the only game they won the turnover margin was again against Buffalo, or excuse me, against Baltimore. I don't. It's so hard to bet against this team, man, because like I'm gun shy after what we saw last year. I am, because nothing about last season's team made sense. They shouldn't have been able to win the Super Bowl, but they did. They found a way, and I think there's a pretty decent chance that by the end of the season, this year's team is better than the one that we saw a year ago, or at least on par with that team. But that team also had Rashee Rice, man. And let's not understate what Rashee brought to the offense and what the element that he was able to bring as a true go-to guy. Juju looked that way for 1 week. I don't know that you can just expect that to be the case the rest of the way. And that's why we're all in agreement they need to go out there and trade for that wide receiver. I don't know. I do think this team probably has more warts than we're giving it credit for, but it's hard to call them out for it because a year ago they looked awful for 3.5 months, pulled it together in the final month of the season. And now that's the thing that everybody will cling to and say, well, if they could flip the switch when it mattered most last year, why don't you think that they can this year? Also, they're 5-0. So they're getting away with it this season as well, even if the margin of victory for most of these games has been small. I think it is worth noting there's no other team in the history of the NFL that has won consistently the way that the Chiefs have over the last year and a half. Maybe they're just going to go down as an all-time outlier. Totally in play, but that's what it would be. They would be an outlier, not just in recent memory, but in the entire history of this league with the way that they're winning football games.
It's unreal how they continue to do this. It's been over a calendar year of these kinds of performances now, and sloppy football too. It's not like they ever really clean up anything. Like, it's not like they ever totally solve all the things that plague them as a football team. They just overcome it somehow over and over and over again, in part because I think the defense is just amazing, and the defense looks amazing again this year, even if it's slightly underachieving compared to what last year's defense did. But like, Steve Spagnuolo has been amazing this season, and that's partly why I think this works in years where it wouldn't work, because they couldn't lean on the defense this way. And the way they can lean on the defense now is the only reason that they're 5-0, because without the defense looking like it's one of the 5 best units in football, there's no way they'd be undefeated right now.
True. I just also think that we are good.
The Chiefs are 30th in red zone touchdown rate, 3rd highest turnover rate in the NFL, and they're 5-0. Like, it's just there's no other team in league history that could get away with that crap, man.
The Bengals are 1-4, and they're one of the most explosive offenses in football.
And it'd be one thing, like, if they had the Steelers defense so far this year, like one of the best defenses in the NFL by points, right? Okay, cool. They're just giving up nothing. Their defense has been very good this season. I'm not trying to take anything away from them. They have not been elite at the way that they were a year ago. They've been elite against the run, which is shocking and something that we haven't seen in a really long time in Kansas City. But they're 11th right now in points per drive allowed. It's like they're not even so far a top 10 defense, and they've got the turnover issues, and they've got the red zone issues, and they're 5-0. So I don't know, dude. I don't even know what to say about this team anymore, because anything that you're critical about, the response is naturally they're 5-0 and they won the Super Bowl last year and they had all these same problems. So what are you complaining about? And there's no retort to that. It's like, yeah, no, you're right. I totally agree.
Yeah, I just think, the 5-0 thing, but I think the thing that we have to just really take into account is that when the games matter, they change. Like, they will change to what it is that they need to do. Like, we can go through those playoff games, and when they matter, it's different than the regular season games. Like, they scored at a greater rate. They did different things at a greater rate. So they change. And I think that's something that we have to look at. I will just say this as I'm going to kill this dog, and that's live and in color here. I really am. But I'm going to kill my wife for making me bring him up here with me. But I would like to see this, and I know some people may think this is crazy for me, and I would like to have the room and the opportunity to explain this. I would like to see Kingsley back at left tackle coming out of the bye week. And listen, this is my thought is I felt like it was a quick trigger to bench him. I could understand benching him in the game against the Bengals. I can understand he was struggling there. I did not agree with it not bringing him back. I did not agree with that. But I just watch Wanya, and we've had multiple weeks to see Wanya, and thank God he came back from whatever that injury was that he came back from. But he's not setting the ball on fire. Like it to me, it's very much like what they've had last year. It's very much like he's all right. Like it's not like he's so good that it's forcing you like, man, there's a major difference. Like it's not to that point to me. And I think it is clear Kingsley has the higher ceiling. And I think it is clear they believe that Kingsley has the higher ceiling. That's why they put him in there. And so for me, I would like to see him come back in and listen, you're going to play through some warts as they knew it. But by the end of the year, Kingsley is the more talented player and the better player. And you feel like he's going to feel you because he's not comfortable over there. He ain't comfortable when Kingsley was in there. He's not comfortable when Wanya's in there. And to me, you play the best player if it's that close, and or at least the most potential between the best players. So for me, that's one thing I would like to see change that I don't think will. But I would like to see Kingsley back.
I'm not there with you. I think that we saw when Kingsley was in there, it was untenable at times. Like he was getting beat so quickly, and it was so frustrating for Mahomes. I don't know that you can go back to that unless you think that it's gotten better. And the only people that would know that are the people that are internal. Like the other thing, I mean, he had a really tough matchup against Cincinnati, but those are the kinds of defensive ends that you're going to see as we get further on. You've got San Francisco coming up. You want his first game going up against the Bosa? I don't think so. Max Crosby potentially. Tampa has a defense where they're going to be stunting all day long. Denver's defense is really good this season. It's like the one thing that they do well. If you're going to make this kind of a switch, I think I just don't know that there's a great time to do it. I guess it would probably be Buffalo, Carolina, that 2-week stretch, and then you find out where he's at. And you go from there, but you can't really do that against Buffalo because that might be for like playoff seeding. So it's really just the Carolina game. You'd give him 1 week on the road at Carolina, see where he's at. And if it's good, you go with it. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't make the change. I think Wanya has been passable. I think you're right, Ron. What they're getting out of him right now is similar to what they got last year out of Donovan Smith. And I agree with you as well that Kingsley's upside is higher than what Wanya Morris is. And I think the plan going into the season was for Kingsley to be that guy. But until you see Wanya get to the place where Kingsley ended up being, where it was just too much to overcome, I would just stick with Wanya and say, hey, man, this is your job. Let's see what it looks like. And you'll have to lose it more so than Kingsley just being handed this thing.
I kind of agree with sticking with Wanya right now because I think he's the safer option. But it does to me when I watch him, I feel like he's a player who's already at his ceiling. Like, I don't think Wanya is going to be much more than he is right now when I watch him. I don't see like, I don't watch a player and I think like, man, he's right there. If he could just turn the corner, he's all of a sudden going to be a top 10 left tackle in football or something like that. He's a serviceable starting caliber offensive lineman, like swing tackle reserve player in the NFL who isn't going to totally blow you out of the water, but isn't going to be a total liability every time he's out there either. And Kingsley has the attributes to like be like a legitimate difference maker, cornerstone player. But the knock on him was always that he's really young. He's got a lot to learn. He's a really raw player. And when we saw him early in the season, it just did not look like he had figured out the NFL speed yet. Like you could see like small glimpses of it, but when he's got a guy who can overpower him and these edge rushers that are so fast and so crazy athletic in the NFL, I just feel like he needs some seasoning and some development. And Wanya is further along right now than Kingsley is. And long term, yes, I still hope that Kingsley winds up being that guy because you can see the potential in him as a player that I don't think you can necessarily see in Wanya. But as of right now, I think you just got to roll with the serviceable guy over the upside guy in the case that we see like what happened with him against Trey Hendrickson, where it winds up being he's just getting absolutely dominated and he doesn't have any answers and he's become a total liability.
And Ron, to that point, this is just not a team right now, given where they're at offensively, where they can try to bank on that upside long term. Like you just need to get the guys right now that are in there that give you the best chance to win today. If Kingsley's the guy 2-3 years from now that has that high upside and that you want to bank on, the time to find that out is either if Wanya loses the job, which is possible because it's not like he's been great, or this offseason, and you give him that opportunity to regain the starting left tackle position. But for right now, I think you just got to go with the guy that's playing at a passable level because Kingsley wasn't.
I think I would like to say that I think you two guys are nuts. I think you're nuts. We haven't seen enough. We haven't even seen enough. Like, you guys are acting like he's had 4 or 5 games.
Trey Hendrickson is a very good player.
Game, and there was
he got absolutely decimated by Trey Hendrickson.
He was kicking.
I don't want to see Kingsley against Nick Bosa. Like, I don't want to see Kingsley against Max Crosby. Right?
I don't want to see Wanya against Nick Bosa. Listen, I don't want to see him against any of them. I don't want to see Wanya against any of them. I'm just saying, man, dude, listen, we haven't seen enough from Kingsley to determine this. We came out of the Baltimore game and there was no thought of, yeah, man, we can replace him with somebody, as you all have used the words, passable and serviceable. And I mean, and Serda goes swing tackle is what he just described Wanya Morris as. Like, we didn't come out of the Baltimore game thinking, boy, man, like, they're in trouble. It's when he faced Trey Hendrickson, who is a load. Yes. And then he came in when Wanya came in, and Wanya was getting his butt kicked by him. I'm just saying, I can understand if we had about 4 weeks of him just getting his butt kicked like this. I think the place where we disagree is I think they at the same level. I think they played at the same level. Wanya's just had more snaps. When Wanya came out of this game with that knee thing, Kingsley was looking like Wanya. Right? I mean, he was looking like Wanya. So I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm blind as a bat. I don't think that there's a difference. There's that big of a difference between the two of them. It's just one of them has had a lot more snaps and opportunities than the other one. I don't know. Maybe they know something that I don't know, that he would just get his ass kicked repeatedly like that by everybody.
I mean, to be fair, like you mentioned, we didn't come out of the.
He would have loved to have had a crack and see what he would have done a group that isn't Trey Hendrickson.
You mentioned we didn't come out of that game against Baltimore saying like this is a huge problem. I felt like we came out of it thinking this has the potential to be a pretty big problem. I remember talking about the Bengals game going in and saying, hey, this is a real test for Kingsley, and we're about to find out if he's up to the task. And like, for me, I felt like we learned that week that he wasn't. And I thought that the response by the coaching staff was really telling. This is not something you see very often from Andy Reid, where he just immediately says, nope, can't do that anymore. That is not something we can work with. Think about the number of opportunities he typically gives to guys before he decides, okay, we've got to go with something else. He is typically it's a much longer leash for Andy than it is for a lot of fans with the way that he approaches these things. It was not that way with Kingsley. With Kingsley, he said, I can't work with this. This is not good enough for what we need to do to just function on offense. And now that you don't have one of your best weapons in Rashee Rice, I just don't think you can go back to that. So I do think we're seeing this very differently. If Wanya starts to have some of those moments, and it's totally possible, man, this schedule's not going to be easy from a pass rush perspective over the next few weeks. If he starts having some of those issues that we saw from Kingsley, we can revisit the discussion. But for right now, I don't think this is something they will or should consider.
We most definitely see this differently. All right. As we get to the bye week, right now, the AFC, the Chiefs are 5-0. The Texans are behind them. The Ravens look like they are coming on, and people really like the Ravens. Who do you fellas think right now, 5 weeks in, is the team that the Texans or that the Chiefs need to worry about in the AFC?
It's certainly not the New York Jets. I don't think any of us are worried about them anymore. I still think it's
whoever was.
I mean, I thought maybe they had a chance, like maybe at some point, but I should have known better than Nathaniel Hackett. But I think it's the Texans, and I don't think it's really all that close. I still think the Ravens are there, but until the Ravens actually do something and prove that they can beat the Chiefs, I'm never going to pick the Ravens to beat the Chiefs. Like I just think that the Chiefs are better than them overall. And I know the Texans just placed Nico Collins on IR, and that's a devastating blow. But I look across the AFC, I just don't see teams with a ton of upside. And I still think that Houston has the upside that nobody else does. It just hasn't totally clicked yet. And when it does totally click, I think Houston can be that team. The Bills are talented, but I think the Bills are good at beating up on bad teams. And I don't actually know how good the Bills are this season just yet. So I think it's Houston, and then everybody else I feel like I could poke holes in and say that I'm questioning everything about them.
You guys are not going to like my answer. It's the Cincinnati Bengals. They're 1-4.
Their defense is garbage, though.
It's terrible. It's horrific. But they're the only team really in the AFC right now that I think poses a real threat to the Kansas City Chiefs. We know how it is when they go head-to-head against the Chiefs. It's going to be a close game. If they play again, once again in the postseason, that will be decided by one score. I don't know which direction it'll go. I would pick the Chiefs, but it'll be decided by one score because that's how every Chiefs versus Bengals game is, and they will have their A game when they go up against Kansas City. Here's their upcoming schedule. Giants, Browns, Eagles, Raiders, Chargers, Steelers. There is one game on the road that I did not mention, and that is head-to-head against the Baltimore Ravens stuck in there. They have a real chance over their next 7 games to win 6 of them at a minimum, and if they do, they will be right back into the thick of things as a real contender in the AFC playoff race once again. To me, I know what their limitations are, Serda. You are 100% correct. They have one of the 5 worst defenses in the NFL. If they're going to do anything this year, it will be in the 2018 Kansas City Chiefs mold. They will have to have an all-time offense, and they will have to overcome their own deficiencies with what they have on the defensive side of the ball. I think they might be capable of that, though. They have looked spectacular offensively over the last couple of weeks. And if they're able to reach that ceiling, to me, they are still the team that poses the biggest threat to the Chiefs in the AFC.
Yeah, again, if I'm working, again, you guys are insane. Both of you. Both of you are completely. If I know I'm not working now. I'm really getting angry here. I'm really getting pissed off. Am I working yet? Am I working yet?
I
got it all coming over. I just had my gallbladder ripped out. I'm really. Yeah, this pisses me smooth off. But no, I think you guys are both nuts. Again, I don't know what you guys are doing and what you're talking about. We got Steve, we got Serda first, who's going to say that he believes in the Houston Texans, that doesn't believe in the Baltimore Ravens because they haven't done to the Chiefs, except that the Texans can't beat the Ravens and at all. The two they have gotten destroyed. The Texans have 4 wins against bad teams, and they've won by a total of 15 points. Buffalo waltzed in there with their quarterback going 9 for 30 for 131 yards and almost walked out of there with a victory with their coaching team trying to lose the game against them. And then you BK, go with the Cincinnati Bengals, who are basically being the NFL's version of the Kansas Jayhawks as they try to find ways to lose games week after week after week to the tune of 1-4. And you're now reading their schedule to talk about they could go win 6 of 7. All right, let's start with 1. Let's see how they not blow games as they do every week. They damn near lost to they were in a battle with the Panthers, their lone win. So let's calm down. Let's not get crazy. It is the Baltimore Ravens. And the way that they run the football and the guys that they have, and Lamar can play with them, and they are not afraid of the Chiefs, even though they have struggled. I would never pick the Ravens, but if we're saying the team that can give the Chiefs the most problems right now in the AFC, it is Lamar Jackson, it is Derrick Henry, it is that Ravens team over anybody else. Not a 1-4 team and not a 4-1 team that is struggling, that is young. It is the Baltimore Ravens. I wouldn't pick any of those teams to beat the Chiefs, but right now I would say the Ravens, and it's damn easy. And it is pretty clear at this point that it is the Ravens right now.
I have no fear of the Ravens. None.
Me either.
Like I have. They could go up against each other in the postseason. I do think it would probably
fear
be
the Bengals and the Texans right now?
Much more than the Ravens, absolutely. Yeah. I think those teams head-to-head against the Chiefs pose more of a threat and have more matchup problems than the Ravens do. The Ravens don't have a receiver that scares me, man. And the Chiefs have one of the best run defenses in the NFL. So I'm not afraid necessarily of Derrick Henry running all over them. Obviously, you have to worry about Lamar's legs. That is always something that you have to consider. Outside of that, though, like, I think
they outran us by 100 yards in that first one.
Yeah, because of Lamar's legs.
Yeah,
if you look at what
Lamar.
they did on the ground with Derrick Henry did almost nothing on the ground against the Chiefs in that week. That was the start of what they've done against running backs. You look at what that defense has done this year. Baltimore is not the same defensively as they were a year ago. They're fine, but they are not great. And they just got shredded this past week by the Cincinnati Bengals, the team that I think is actually the best in the AFC. In terms of the matchup against the Chiefs, the team that scares me the most in the AFC. The Ravens, they don't do anything for me, man. That is just not a team that when they come to play against Kansas City, I fear what they bring to the table.
Yeah, I still think that the Ravens could, get better as the season goes on. But BK's right. Like, their defense hasn't been anything close to what they were last season. And last season, they were the defense they're this historically great defense. And for some reason, everybody was overlooking the Chiefs defense because Baltimore was on this incredible run at the end of the season. And I think the Chiefs defense was better overall than Baltimore, despite all of the metrics and statistics to say Baltimore was like one of the greatest defenses in DVOA history or whatever. They haven't been close to that this season. And I think the Houston Texans have one of the best pass rushes in the NFL. I know their secondary is a little suspect, but overall, I think D'Amico Ryans is going to get a ton out of that defense. And I think it's just, they got to get Nico Collins back, but I think it's just a matter of time until the offense really figures things out and starts clicking for the Houston Texans. So I've got way more faith in the Texans as an overall team than I do the Baltimore Ravens right now.
Ron, I think the biggest thing for me, I don't think you can. I don't think you can beat this Chiefs team this year with this defense with a running game. That's not how you beat this version of the Kansas City Chiefs. I think you have to do it through the air. And to me, the only teams that have the kind of offense, the kind of weapons to be able to beat them are Cincinnati and Houston. I do think it's interesting we have not mentioned Buffalo at all, because like, if we're going to bring up Baltimore, I think the team that has some of the stuff, the elements that Baltimore brings to the table that maybe I would fear even more, honestly, because of what Josh Allen is as a quarterback, it's actually Buffalo that would concern me a little bit more than what Baltimore brings to the table. Baltimore's like 5th on my list of AFC teams that concern me, man.
Yeah. Again, as I said, I think you guys are both insane. Like, this isn't a normal run game that the Ravens are bringing to the table. It's not a normal run game they bring to the table, and they complete enough passes where they are effective, because Isaiah Likely's ass was certainly effective, and they were able to complete enough passes to do things. Their offensive line has gotten better. I find it very amusing that Steve Serda believes that the Texans offense is just a matter of time that they get right, that this Baltimore's defense that we've seen more proven with the players that they have on it, that it's not a matter of time that they're not better than what they're playing right now. So I think it's
they don't have great corners.
It is okay. All right. As you just said, as you said their secondary is weak there with the Texans, but they don't have great corners. That's fine. Like we'll see what happens there. But like just the dismissive of Baltimore, like yeah. The Chiefs, like to me, I don't want to bet that they'll be able to do that to Derrick Henry every single time they play them. I don't like. I'm
always
confident
do.
in the Chiefs defense. I'm not 100% confident. Yeah, no, they don't always do. They don't always do because they've not always seen this. That was week 1 for the Ravens, the first time that Lamar and them played, and now we're seeing the two of them together. That's right. Whatever. Hopefully we don't. We'll. I think you guys are insane and out of your minds.
Teams in the AFC that scare me more than the Baltimore Ravens include the Bengals, the Texans, the Bills, the Jets, the Chargers. It's a lot.
Stupid. The Jets and the Chargers. I'm not going to allow you to piss me off like that. The Jets and the Chargers. Why don't you roll the Broncos down? You're really feeling good about Bo Nix too, huh?
They're better defense.
Steelers. I'm telling you, wait till Russell. Yeah, wait till Russ gets a hold of them. That'll be it.
Hey, Ron, if the Steelers get Devontae Adams, you better watch out. I'll add him to the list.
It's working. I'm just not talking to you. No, it's working. I'm just not talking to you. No, it was working. I'm just not talking to you. They get Devontae Adams. The Jets are firing their coach right now, and they have one of the worst idiots in the league who is about his skill set right now. And Aaron Rodgers, who they fired their defensive coach to keep Nathaniel rolling around that team, and you got the Jets.
I said the Steelers. I'm going to add the Steelers to the list.
I'm not even going to do this. Yeah, add the Steelers. Yeah, I know. Yeah, you add the Steelers to your list. I'm done. Have a great vacation.